At the Evergreen Hotel, a legacy of respect and excellence is threatened when new director Thomas Blake imposes harsh, unjust policies. Unaware of the hotel's inclusive history and the struggles of its staff, Thomas's management style ignites tension and fear. Leah, the owner's daughter and a key staff member, witnesses the unfolding crisis and decides to take a stand. Armed with evidence of mistreatment, she challenges Thomas and fights to restore the hotel's supportive environment. Will Leah's courage be enough to save the Evergreen from a descent into discord, or will the hotel's values be lost forever? Subscribe now to follow this gripping tale of resilience and transformation. The Evergreen Hotel stood as a beacon of luxury and refinement in the heart of the city, a grand testament to timeless elegance blended seamlessly with modern amenities. Its towering facade, adorned with ivy-covered walls and intricate ironwork, had been a silent witness to countless stories of triumph and despair, romance and heartbreak, all played out within its opulent walls. The lobby, a vast expanse of marble and crystal, gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers, each one a work of art crafted to perfection. The hotel's reputation was unmatched. It was known not just for its exceptional service, but for the unique sense of belonging it offered to its guests, who ranged from celebrities to world leaders. The secret to the hotel's success lay not just in its physical grandeur, but in the people who worked tirelessly to maintain its standards. The Evergreen was a haven for its staff, a place where they were more than just employees. They were part of a family, and at the head of this family was the enigmatic and kind-hearted owner, Mr. Henderson, a man of mystery to most. Mr. Henderson rarely appeared in public, preferring to operate from behind the scenes. His story was one of resilience and quiet strength, a narrative that inspired many of his employees who had faced similar struggles. Mr. Henderson's journey to owning the Evergreen had been anything but easy. Born into a world where the color of his skin dictated his opportunities, he had fought against prejudice and systemic racism to carve out a place for himself in the business world. His determination to succeed had been fueled by a desire to create a space where people like him could find not just employment, but dignity and respect. The Evergreen was his answer to the injustices he had faced, a place where everyone, regardless of their background, could thrive. The staff at the Evergreen reflected Mr. Henderson's values. Many of them had experienced hardship and discrimination in their lives, finding it nearly impossible to secure employment due to the color of their skin or their socioeconomic status. Yet, within the walls of the Evergreen, they found a sanctuary. Each employee had their own story of struggle and triumph, and together they formed a tight-knit community that supported one another through thick and thin. One such story was that of Sarah, a housekeeper who had been with the Evergreen for over a decade. Sarah had been a single mother struggling to make ends meet when she first applied for a job at the hotel. Rejected from countless other places due to her lack of formal education and the stigma of her circumstances, she had all but given up hope. But Mr. Henderson saw something in her, a resilience and a determination that mirrored his own. Under his mentorship, Sarah not only found stability, but also a sense of purpose, eventually rising to become the head housekeeper, respected and loved by her colleagues. Another was James, a bellhop who had come to the city with nothing but the clothes on his back and a dream. Like many of his colleagues, he had faced prejudice at every turn, denied opportunities simply because of his race. At the Evergreen, he found a place that valued him for his hard work and dedication, and he quickly became an integral part of the team, known for his warm smile and unwavering commitment to the guests. And then there was Leah, a young woman whose journey was just beginning. Leah was Mr. Henderson's daughter, though few at the hotel knew this. Despite her privileged background, Leah had chosen to work at the Evergreen as a housekeeper under a different name, to understand the challenges faced by the staff on a daily basis. She wanted to earn her place in the family business, not through favoritism, but through hard work and dedication. Leah's decision to keep her identity a secret was driven by her desire to truly connect with the people she would one day lead, and to uncover any issues within the hotel that needed addressing. Leah's presence at the Evergreen had gone largely unnoticed by the staff, who saw her as just another hard-working member of the team. She had quickly earned their respect through her diligence and humility, never asking for special treatment and always willing to go the extra mile to help a colleague in need. But beneath her quiet demeanor, Leah was always observing, taking mental notes of the things that worked well and the areas that needed improvement. As the Evergreen thrived, it was clear that Mr. Henderson's vision of creating a safe and supportive environment was being realized. The hotel was more than just a place to stay. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when people were given the opportunity to succeed. But change was on the horizon, and the arrival of a new director would soon put everything Mr. Henderson had built to the test. The day Thomas arrived at the Evergreen Hotel was marked by a crisp autumn breeze and the promise of change. As the new director, his arrival was anticipated with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension by the staff. The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers from the lobby arrangements, but an undercurrent of unease flowed through the employees as they prepared for the new regime. Thomas's introduction to the hotel was as grand as his persona. Arriving in a sleek black luxury sedan, he was greeted by the hotel's general manager, Charles, who had been Mr. Henderson's trusted right hand. Charles, with his well-practiced smile, offered a cordial welcome. "Mr. Thomas, it's a pleasure to have you here. I trust your journey was comfortable." Thomas, adjusting his impeccably tailored suit, replied curtly, "Yes, thank you. Let's get straight to business." As Thomas stepped into the hotel lobby, he surveyed the space with a critical eye. The opulence of the place, with its grand chandeliers and polished marble floors, seemed to set him on edge. It was clear from the start that Thomas had a different vision for the hotel. His background in corporate management had shaped him into a leader who prized efficiency and discipline above all else. The warm, familial atmosphere that had been the hallmark of the Evergreen did not fit his idea of a well-run business. Thomas's first days were spent conducting thorough inspections and meetings with department heads. He meticulously reviewed performance reports, scrutinized employee files, and took note of the hotel's operational procedures. It was during these initial assessments that he began to notice what he perceived as inefficiencies and lax standards. To Thomas, the hotel's relaxed atmosphere was synonymous with a lack of professionalism. One of his first orders of business was to implement stricter controls. He introduced new policies that included more frequent performance reviews, stringent guidelines for staff conduct, and a zero-tolerance approach to mistakes. He believed that these measures would drive improvement and elevate the hotel's standards to what he considered acceptable. However, these changes were met with resistance and confusion among the staff. Leah, working diligently in her role as a housekeeper, noticed the shift in the atmosphere. The warmth and camaraderie that had defined her workplace were being replaced by a tense environment where mistakes were met with harsh reprimands. She observed Thomas's interactions with her colleagues, noting his critical demeanor and lack of empathy. Leah's concern grew as she witnessed the stress and anxiety that began to affect her co-workers. Thomas's arrival also brought a shift in management style. He favored a top-down approach, with decisions made unilaterally and implemented without consulting the staff who would be affected. This approach starkly contrasted with the collaborative and inclusive environment that had been fostered under Mr. Henderson's leadership. In private meetings with department heads, Thomas expressed his dissatisfaction with what he saw as inefficiencies. "We need to tighten up every aspect of this operation," he declared. "There's no room for error. Our guests deserve the best, and that requires strict adherence to our new standards." Charles, though loyal to Mr. Henderson, found himself caught between the old and new regimes. He tried to mediate between Thomas's demands and the staff's growing concerns, but it was clear that the changes were creating a rift within the hotel. The staff's morale began to suffer, and the once harmonious environment was increasingly characterized by tension and fear. Leah, observing the growing discontent, found herself in a difficult position. As Mr. Henderson's daughter, she was aware of the legacy of support and respect that the Evergreen had cultivated. She knew that the new policies and Thomas's management style were in stark contrast to what her father had envisioned. Determined to understand the full extent of the changes and their impact on the staff, Leah decided to take a more active role in addressing the issues that were arising. As the weeks passed, the tension within the Evergreen Hotel escalated. The once vibrant and supportive workplace was now marred by a pervasive sense of dread. Staff meetings were filled with a stifling atmosphere of unease, and the employees' interactions became increasingly strained. The camaraderie that had once defined the hotel seemed to be eroding under the weight of Thomas's new policies. Leah, keenly aware of the impact these changes were having, began to document the growing dissatisfaction among the staff. She took notes on the increasing number of complaints and the general atmosphere of fear that had settled over the hotel. She also observed Thomas's behavior more closely, noting his tendency to single out individuals for minor infractions while overlooking the same issues when they occurred with others. One morning, Leah was in the break room when she overheard a conversation between two of her colleagues, Emma and Marcus. Emma, a waitress in the hotel's restaurant, was visibly upset. "It's like we're walking on eggshells all the time now," she said. "I got written up for a small mistake yesterday. It's not like this was ever an issue before." Marcus, a maintenance worker, nodded in agreement. "It's happening to all of us. Thomas is so quick to find fault. I've never seen the staff this stressed out." Leah listened with concern, realizing that the staff's fears were valid. She decided to speak with Mr. Henderson about the situation, hoping that he would be able to address the growing issues. However, she knew that approaching him directly could be risky, given Thomas's recent changes to the hotel's management structure. That evening, Leah drafted a detailed report outlining the issues she had observed and the concerns raised by her colleagues. She included specific examples of instances where Thomas's actions had negatively impacted the staff and the overall working environment. The report was thorough and objective, designed to provide a clear picture of the situation without appearing confrontational. The next day, Leah requested a private meeting with Mr. Henderson, who agreed to see her in his office. As she walked through the grand corridors of the hotel, Leah felt a mix of nervousness and determination. She had always admired her father's commitment to fairness and respect, and she hoped that he would be able to address the issues she had brought to light. In Mr. Henderson's office, Leah presented her report and discussed the growing tensions among the staff. Mr. Henderson listened attentively, his expression thoughtful as he reviewed the documentation. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Leah," he said finally. "I appreciate your dedication to ensuring that the Evergreen remains a place where people feel valued." Mr. Henderson promised to investigate the matter further and assured Leah that he would address the issues with Thomas. "Change can be difficult," he said, "but it's important that we maintain the values that have made this hotel special. I'll have a conversation with Thomas and see what can be done to improve the situation." Leah left the meeting feeling a sense of relief. She hoped that Mr. Henderson's intervention would bring about a positive change and help restore the supportive environment that had been the hallmark of the Evergreen. However, she was also wary of the potential for further conflict, knowing that Thomas's rigid approach to management was not easily swayed. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Henderson's intervention did little to alleviate the tension that had settled over the Evergreen Hotel. Although Mr. Henderson had expressed his concerns to Thomas, the new director remained resolute in his approach, believing that his methods were necessary to achieve the high standards he had set for the hotel. The rift between Thomas's management style and the staff's expectations continued to widen, and Leah found herself increasingly at odds with Thomas. One day, Leah was working in the hotel's laundry room when she overheard a heated argument between Thomas and Sarah, the head housekeeper. Sarah had been reprimanded for what Thomas deemed as a minor error in the cleaning protocols, but Sarah felt that the criticism was unjustified and harsh. "I've been working here for years," Sarah said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I know how to do my job. This mistake was small, and I've always met your standards." Thomas's response was cold and unyielding. "Small mistakes lead to bigger problems. We can't afford any lapses in our procedures. If you can't meet the standards, we'll have to make changes." Leah watched as Sarah's shoulders slumped, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and resignation. Leah knew that Sarah had always been a dedicated and hard-working employee, and she felt a deep sense of injustice witnessing her being treated so harshly. That evening, Leah decided to confront Thomas directly. She approached him in his office, her heart pounding as she prepared to discuss the growing concerns she had about his management style. Thomas looked up from his desk, his expression one of surprise at her unexpected visit. "Mr. Thomas, may I speak with you for a moment?" Leah asked, her voice steady despite her nerves. Thomas gestured for her to sit. "Of course, Leah. What's on your mind?" Leah took a deep breath. "I wanted to talk to you about the recent changes and how they're affecting the staff. I understand that you're trying to implement higher standards, but I believe that the way you're approaching it is causing unnecessary stress and resentment among the employees." Thomas raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. "I'm implementing these changes to ensure that we meet the highest standards of service. If the staff is feeling stressed, it's because they're not accustomed to the level of discipline required." Leah shook her head. "It's not just about discipline. It's about respect and understanding. The staff has always worked hard and met the standards set by Mr. Henderson. They feel that the new policies are unfair and that they're being punished for minor mistakes." Thomas's expression hardened. "I'm here to run this hotel professionally. If the staff can't meet my expectations, then we need to reassess their roles." Leah felt a surge of frustration. "I think you're missing the point. It's not just about meeting expectations. It's about maintaining the positive environment that made this hotel special. Mr. Henderson built something meaningful here, and I'm afraid that your approach is undermining that." Thomas's gaze was unyielding. "I appreciate your input, Leah, but I'm not going to compromise on the standards I've set. If you have issues with my methods, you're welcome to discuss them with Mr. Henderson." Leah left the meeting feeling disheartened. She had hoped to bridge the gap between Thomas and the staff, but it was clear that Thomas was unwilling to consider any changes to his approach. The atmosphere at the hotel continued to deteriorate, and Leah felt a growing sense of urgency to address the issues before they reached a breaking point. As the situation at the Evergreen Hotel continued to deteriorate, Leah became increasingly determined to seek justice for her colleagues. The growing unrest among the staff was evident in the heightened tension and visible signs of stress that marked their daily interactions. Leah knew that if something wasn't done soon, the damage to the hotel's morale and reputation could be irreversible. Leah began by gathering evidence of the unjust treatment that staff members were experiencing. She interviewed her colleagues, documenting their complaints and collecting accounts of instances where Thomas's actions had been particularly harsh or unfair. She spoke with Emma, Marcus, and several other employees, all of whom had their own stories of being unfairly targeted or reprimanded. One particularly troubling account came from Emma, who had been written up for a minor error in her service that Thomas had deemed unacceptable. "I made a mistake with a guest's order," Emma explained. "It was a small mix-up, but Thomas used it as an excuse to reprimand me harshly. I've never been treated like this before." Leah also gathered evidence from Marcus, who had faced similar issues with Thomas's strict enforcement of policies. "I'm used to being held to high standards," Marcus said, "but the way Thomas goes about it is demoralizing. It feels like he's looking for reasons to find fault." Armed with this documentation, Leah decided to take her concerns to Mr. Henderson once more. She knew that this was a risky move, but she felt that it was the only way to address the issues and protect her colleagues from further harm. She prepared a comprehensive report outlining the specific instances of unfair treatment, the impact on staff morale, and the potential long-term consequences for the hotel's reputation. Leah requested another meeting with Mr. Henderson, and this time she was more assertive in her approach. As she entered his office, she carried a folder filled with evidence and a sense of determination. Mr. Henderson greeted her with a concerned expression. "Leah, what can I do for you today?" he asked. Leah took a deep breath. "Mr. Henderson, I need to address some serious issues that have arisen since Thomas's arrival. I've documented several instances where staff members have been treated unfairly and subjected to excessive criticism. The atmosphere at the hotel is deteriorating, and it's affecting everyone's well-being." Mr. Henderson's brows furrowed as he reviewed the report Leah presented. "This is troubling information," he said after a moment. "I appreciate your thoroughness in documenting these issues." Leah nodded, her voice steady. "I believe that if we don't address these problems soon, we risk losing the positive environment that has been the hallmark of the Evergreen. The staff is stressed and disheartened, and it's affecting their performance and morale." Mr. Henderson looked thoughtful, his expression a mix of concern and contemplation. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Leah. I'll need to conduct a thorough investigation to understand the full scope of the situation." Leah left the meeting with a sense of cautious optimism. She hoped that Mr. Henderson's intervention would lead to meaningful changes and that the staff's concerns would finally be addressed. However, she remained wary of the potential for further conflict and was prepared to continue advocating for her colleagues if necessary. Following Leah's detailed report, Mr. Henderson initiated a formal investigation into the concerns raised about Thomas's management. The investigation involved interviewing staff members, reviewing documentation, and assessing the overall impact of the new policies on the hotel's operations. Mr. Henderson appointed an independent consultant to conduct the investigation, ensuring that the process would be impartial and thorough. The consultant, Dr. Rebecca Collins, was known for her expertise in organizational behavior and had a reputation for uncovering the truth in complex situations. Dr. Collins began her work by meeting with various staff members individually. Leah accompanied her to some of the interviews, providing additional context and support where needed. The staff members, many of whom had been reluctant to speak out due to fear of retaliation, felt a sense of relief at being able to voice their concerns in a safe and confidential environment. During the investigation, Dr. Collins uncovered several troubling patterns. It became evident that Thomas's approach to management had created an environment of fear and intimidation. Many staff members reported instances where they felt unjustly reprimanded or unfairly targeted, often for minor or unintentional errors. One particularly alarming discovery was that Thomas had implemented a new system of performance reviews that included subjective criteria and ambiguous standards. This system allowed for inconsistencies in how staff members were evaluated, leading to perceptions of bias and unfair treatment. Dr. Collins also found evidence of a lack of communication and collaboration between Thomas and the staff. Many employees felt that their input was ignored and that decisions were made without considering their perspectives or concerns. This lack of transparency contributed to the growing dissatisfaction among the team. Leah's role in the investigation was crucial. She provided valuable insights into the staff's experiences and helped to highlight the ways in which Thomas's management style had impacted the hotel's culture. Her dedication to uncovering the truth and advocating for her colleagues was evident in every interaction with Dr. Collins. After several weeks of investigation, Dr. Collins compiled a comprehensive report detailing her findings. The report confirmed many of the concerns that Leah had raised, including the unjust treatment of staff, the negative impact of Thomas's policies, and the overall decline in morale. Dr. Collins presented her findings to Mr. Henderson, outlining the key issues and recommending several changes to address the problems. The investigation has revealed significant issues with the current management approach, Dr. Collins said. To restore a positive work environment and ensure that the Evergreen remains a place where employees feel valued, it will be essential to address these concerns promptly. Mr. Henderson, deeply troubled by the findings, began to formulate a plan to address the issues identified in the report. He knew that the process of implementing changes would be challenging, but he was committed to restoring the hotel's legacy of respect and support for its staff. With the results of the investigation in hand, Mr. Henderson knew that decisive action was needed to address the issues at the Evergreen Hotel. The next step was to confront Thomas about the findings and discuss the necessary changes to restore a positive work environment. Mr. Henderson scheduled a meeting with Thomas, ensuring that it would be held in a neutral and private setting. Leah, who had been deeply involved in the investigation, was present to provide additional context and support. As the meeting began, Mr. Henderson addressed Thomas with a serious and measured tone. "Thomas, I've reviewed the findings from the investigation conducted by Dr. Collins. The report highlights several significant issues with your management approach and its impact on the staff." Thomas's expression remained impassive as he listened. "I see. And what are the next steps?" Mr. Henderson continued. "The report indicates that your policies have created an environment of fear and intimidation. Many employees feel that they have been treated unfairly, and the overall morale at the hotel has declined. To address these issues, we need to implement several changes." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "I stand by my methods. They are designed to achieve high standards and improve performance. If that's not acceptable, then we may have a fundamental disagreement about how this hotel should be run." Leah spoke up, her voice firm, yet respectful. "Thomas, the issues aren't just about performance. It's about how we achieve those standards. The Evergreen has always been a place where employees are supported and respected. Your approach has undermined that, and it's important that we find a way to balance high standards with a positive work environment." Mr. Henderson nodded in agreement. "I believe that it's possible to achieve excellence while maintaining the values that have defined the Evergreen. We need to focus on constructive feedback, open communication, and support for our staff. The conversation continued as Mr. Henderson outlined specific changes that would be implemented. These included revising performance review processes to ensure fairness and transparency, providing additional training for managers on effective communication and leadership, and restoring a more collaborative approach to decision-making. Thomas, although initially resistant, began to acknowledge the need for some adjustments. I understand that changes are necessary. If we can find a way to address these issues while still maintaining high standards, I'm willing to work towards that. The meeting concluded with a commitment to implementing the recommended changes and a plan for regular follow-up to assess progress. Mr. Henderson expressed his hope that these steps would help restore the positive work environment that had been the hallmark of the Evergreen. Leah felt a sense of relief as she left the meeting. She was hopeful that the changes would bring about a more supportive and respectful atmosphere for the staff. However, she remained vigilant and prepared to continue advocating for her colleagues as the process of implementing the changes began. With the plan for change in place, the Evergreen Hotel began a period of transformation. The implementation of the new policies and procedures was met with a mix of hope and skepticism among the staff. The process of restoring the hotel's positive work environment was gradual, but there were signs of improvement as the changes took effect. Leah played a key role in facilitating the transition. She worked closely with management to ensure that the new policies were communicated effectively to the staff and that feedback was gathered throughout the process. Her commitment to supporting her colleagues and advocating for their needs was evident in every interaction. One of the first changes was the revision of the performance review system. The new system emphasized clear and objective criteria, with opportunities for staff to provide input and discuss their performance with their supervisors. This change helped to address some of the concerns about unfair treatment and created a more transparent process. Training sessions were conducted for managers to improve their communication and leadership skills. These sessions focused on creating a supportive and respectful work environment, and many of the managers, including Thomas, participated actively. The training aimed to foster a culture of constructive feedback and collaboration, rather than one of fear and intimidation. As the weeks went by, the atmosphere at the Evergreen Hotel began to improve. Staff members reported feeling more valued and supported, and there was a noticeable decrease in the stress and anxiety that had characterized the previous months. The positive environment that had once been a hallmark of the hotel was gradually being restored. Thomas, while still maintaining high standards, made an effort to adapt his management style. He began to approach staff interactions with more empathy and understanding, recognizing the importance of balancing discipline with support. The changes were not always easy, but Thomas's willingness to adjust and learn from the process helped to rebuild trust with the staff. Mr. Henderson remained actively involved in overseeing the implementation of the changes. He conducted regular check-ins with Leah and the staff to assess progress and address any ongoing concerns. His commitment to ensuring that the Evergreen remained a place where employees felt respected and valued was evident in his actions. By the end of the transition period, the Evergreen Hotel had undergone a significant transformation. The hotel's reputation for excellence was being reaffirmed, not just through its high standards of service, but also through the positive and supportive work environment that had been restored. Leah reflected on the journey with a sense of accomplishment. The challenges had been formidable, but the efforts to address the issues and improve the working environment had been worthwhile. The Evergreen Hotel was once again a place where employees felt valued and motivated, and Leah knew that the changes would have a lasting impact on the hotel's success. As the sun set over the Evergreen, casting a warm glow over the grand lobby, Leah felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. The hotel had emerged from the challenges stronger and more resilient, and the commitment to maintaining its legacy of respect and support for its staff remained as steadfast as ever.